It doesn't Captain Marvel. The ending was great. It was kind of, Thanos actually being the one to guide him to death. But whose idea was that? I mean, is that a book you wanted to do? I know you said you used it to help deal with the death of your father, but I mean, to kill off a major character, it's got to be kind of a corporate decision, or is that a story that you had proposed?
It was a corporate decision. I had done Captain Marvel, it had been a very successful series. Others had taken it over afterwards, and the sales have plummeted ever since that time. So the writers admittedly said they didn't know what to do with this character. Archie Goodwin probably did the best one of the lot of it afterwards, and he said, you left us in a corner. We don't know what to do with him. He could do anything, or he could quit at any moment. What do we do with him? We're going to kill him off and start over. And he said, would you like to kill him off? And so, like I said, I had a deal with Jim Shooter. If I killed off Captain Marvel, we would do the Dreadstar series. And so I did about 5 or 6 plots before I got to where I was at. I had him dying in explosives, all these claptrap cliches that you've seen a million times before. I kept throwing things out, and Shooter kept saying, where am I going to get this plot? We want to schedule this book. So it just hit me one day, I was thinking about my own father and how he had died 6 months before, and everything sort of fell into place. And, the cancer was my idea, the killing them off was their idea.
Yes, if Thanos was in a movie, what actor would you like to see portray him?
Scott Glenn. He doesn't look anything like him, but nobody does. But he's got the great voice for that. Scott Glenn. There's a British actor, Israel Elba, I think his name is.
Idris Elba.
Idris Elba.
He was in Wire. He was the main bad guy.
Yeah.
He has a good voice for it. Whoever you do it, you have to do some amplification of voice. Yeah, those would be my 2 choices.
Some of the oddball characters where there's side characters in a number of your things, Pip, Skibo. I'm saying those names right.
Skibo's a very Brooklyn expression.
And like Odie, if I'm saying
Eddie.
Eddie? Okay.
Like an Oedipus.
Okay. Where did those characters come from? You just kind of mentioned one.
Well, Oedipus is, of course, from the Greek play, and shrink lingo. Skibo is from Brooklyn. Pip is from Shakespeare. Pip's direct script. Where's he at? Summer's Night's Dream?
Summer's Night's Dream.
Yeah. So, no, I'm very confident in that.
You're a great artist, and you've worked with great artists. Like, whose art blows you away? Like, who do you really like to see? Like, who's your inspiration? From the Golden or Silver Age?
Oh, I started off with Kirby and Ditko as my foundations. Now I soak up everything from M.C. Escher to Piranesi to Frank Miller. You name it, it all comes in someplace. I'm a sponge. If it strikes me as fun, I'll soak it up for a while, and it shows up. I don't plan on stealing it, but it comes out.
By the same token, what are some of the writers, both in novels and comics, that inspire you these days?
These days, boy, I'm bad at names sometimes. Who did I just? I can go back to. I always black out when they ask the names. Who did Tale of Two Cities? Charles Dickens. I mean, I can go from Dickens to Elmore Leonard. Who did Life of Pi? That was one that just recently did.
I think was the author's
I'm better at the books than I am the names.
Yeah, what about the books then?
Life of Pi, the girl with the tattoo things. I really enjoyed those lately. Let's see, what have I read lately? I'm going through the Luna, Patricia. It's set in Mexico with I'm good at remembering the names of the artists, but the writers, they just, Patricia, not Cornwall, she was the one who did the Riley series.
Yeah, she does like the.
Kingsolver.
Okay, Kingsolver.
Yes, I'm reading her right now. If I'm sitting around here talking with folks about writing, I have no trouble. You could be in a microphone. I can't remember the name of the authors, but I'm pretty eclectic.
Have you read any of Marvel's newer cosmic stuff, Annihilation, and
I don't read corporate comics anymore. I'm sorry. I know you guys are all into it, but I've been there, got soured on it, and I'm doing other things now.
The two architects of that, I know they basically were, they whenever I interview you, they interview them, they pay homage to you. I mean, because they're working with your characters, and they say you pretty much inspired these kids. Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning, they're two British writers that goes out.
That's not simple. But I really don't pay much any attention.
Understandably, I mean, considering it sounds like you related some of the just weird comics that went on, when you work at Cloverfield.
Well, my Art of Jim Starlin book's got a whole rant about working for the comics industry. That's interesting. My last time at Marvel was particularly surreal.
Yeah, because I mean, you went on, and then Keith Giffen sort of came on after whatever happened with Thanos.
That was selling their fifth best-selling book.
Right.
There were a couple of Spider-Mans and X-Men's who were pieces out, and sales started coming in, and all of a sudden they started dumping all over me, pulling my characters out, telling me if I didn't like it, that I could quit. So I said, well, okay, I think I'll quit.
Right.
So it was a little weird.
And again, how is it coming back to breed after? But then again, I read that you had four issues in the can as well.
I had a good deal of it done, but I had done the backgrounds in Strata Studio Pro, which is three-dimensional. So looking back at it now, I decided it just wasn't worth it. At the time, if it had come out at that point, it would have been kind of unique. But now enough people have used it. It's kind of old hat. There were some weaknesses in some of the drawing things because I was leaning too much on the computer. And so I just decided I was going to redo it. I had the time, I'm reasonably well off financially, so I can spend the time not working on anything that's paying right away and do it on the back end. So that's what we're doing.
Cool. And you have, that you're selling on the floor, gigantic, autobiography and art book.
It's an art book with sort of a summary of what it was like working in the business for 40 years. And you can knock out a cow with it. That's the biggest selling point. It's a good weapon.
How did you get into the comics industry? How did you start off in that process?
How did I get into the industry?
Yeah.
Basically just showed up when they needed people to pen. I mean, they had gone from nobody in the business to, I think, from 1940s on to the 70s, Neil Adams, Denny O'Neil, and Archie Goodwin were the only people they had hired into the business in like 20 years. And suddenly in the 70s, there was all this influx of these young people my age coming in, and we all started doing comics at the same time because they started selling again. They hadn't been selling for the longest time, and Stan started doing his little magic, and they started expanding and let all us crazy kids in. So that's basically how it started.
What was it like sharing studio space with people like Chaikin and Will Simonson, like you mentioned?
Chaikin and I probably were the closest. Everyone thinks Howard's a maniac, and he is a bit. But he's also the most industrious artist I know.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, he will work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week if he's left.
We actually have to call him at a certain time because he doesn't answer the phone because he's knee deep in whatever he's doing at that time.
And so we both got into painting about the same time. And so we were teaching each other how to paint, literally. I mean, I'd find some tool, and I pointed out to him, and he showed me some new technique. And we were right across from each other. I mean, there were some bookshelves in the way, so him and I had one thing going. Walt, on the other hand, would sit over in his place, and he would read books, and he would tell you about what he was going to do for like 28 days, and then the book would be due, And then he would go into this mad dash to get the entire book out in like 3 days. So Walt was always having visitors and always bothering people until it came time to do his work, and then it was sealed off, and he was crazed. And Val was a whole different story, because Val couldn't make up his mind whether he wanted to be an artist, a martial artist, teacher, or a cartoonist. And so he had all this strange stuff going on in his little universe entirely. And it worked out really nicely. We balanced each other out quite well.
You're saying you don't read corporate comics. Do you read any independent comics, and which ones?
When somebody recommends something to me, to tell you the truth, my time in reading comics is pretty minimal these days. You know, just I'm elsewhere. You know, I'm 60 years old. I'm elsewhere. Sorry. You know.
Have you ever considered doing another like Space Epic Electric Metamorphosis Odyssey, another painted version? Maybe something grand again on that scale?
No, not really, because I don't paint anymore. The computer has spoiled me. I can color all day, and I come down at the end of the day to go down to dinner, and my hands are clean. I don't even have to. I don't have to scrape anything. Well, now they're not so clean, these markers, but I don't have to scrape anything off. When I was working with acrylics and oils, you know, I was toxifying myself. Everything inside those paints are deadly. There used to be a book called Artists Beware. This will give you a listing of all the terrible things that these products will do to you if you use them. And I went through it, and I was using all the most deadly things. You know, I'm surprised I survived this one.
Well, that looked nice.
Yeah, and it was crazy. It just took too long, and I just couldn't do it. Nobody would do it anymore like that. You know, Howard and I were doing some stuff back in the early 80s. They were just, it was too crazy. Nobody could work that way. It was just, you can't do comics in full painting. It just can't be done. The computer allows it now, but back then we were just doing lunacy. Didn't make any sense.
Are there any story genres that you haven't tackled yet that you'd like to tackle? I mean, like say the Western, for instance. Have you ever worked in that genre? I mean, if not, would you like to try something like that?
I've always been tempted, but I've never got around to it. I actually had worked in a very short story that I did with Milgram before we actually started working in comics. It was about a gunfighter who's fighting a mystery gunman that nobody ever sees.
Okay.
And the Henry ending is the fact that the gunfighter's a midget. Everybody's shooting over his head when they so, yeah. So we haven't got a great history in Western, but that would make something to try to.
There's a saying that says, if you find a job doing something you love, you'll never work another day in your life. Do you still hold to that? And if not, what's your hobbies? If drawing is work.
Drawing can be work. I mean, the drawing part more than writing is work. My hobbies, I do a lot, I don't know, riverwalk. I live on the Hudson during the warm weather. I have a kayak and a boat. Put the kayak on the bow of the boat and go off to places, and I shoot pictures of wildlife. Get down in the middle with eagles and blue herons and whatever else is around. Got some of it at the back of the book. You know, basically, I don't wear shoes from about May to October. I'm enjoying a lot.
You mentioned Al Milgram a minute ago, and I was going to ask a question earlier. When I think of your period of your work, I often think of him too. Were you guys that close that you thought of each other as right and left hand? And is there anybody else like that you, on the art side, that you collaborated with, that you respected enough to turn your artwork over to, and you knew it would be done right?
Al Milgram and I go back to high school. I lived in Berkeley at the time. Al lived in Huntington Woods. The doctors lived in Huntington Woods. The factory workers lived in Berkeley. I ran with the tough crowd. Alan ran with the intellectuals. But Alan was a comic book fan, and I was a comic book fan. He learned about it. And he would come running up to me in the hallways and go, "Did you see the new Fantastic Four?" And I'd grab him and I'd pull him in the corner and go, "You shut up, you're going to get me killed." My friends don't know how to read, let alone read comics.